Every morning, the story begins the same way for countless leaders around the world. The alarm clock rings, eyes open, and even before feet touch the floor, the flood begins. Emails stacked in inboxes overnight, messages waiting on phones, a calendar already packed with meetings that will spill into one another. There is a list of urgent calls, unexpected requests, and fires to put out before the day even properly begins. For many, it feels as if life itself is a treadmill set to its highest speed, with no pause button in sight. The question isn't, how many hours are in a day? Everyone has the same 24. The real question is, how do I make each hour matter more? This is where the struggle between being busy and being effective comes to life. It is the silent battle every leader fights, whether they sit in a boardroom of a multinational corporation or run a small team within a growing business. Too often, leaders wear busyness as a badge of honor, moving fast, attending every meeting, responding to every ping, always in demand. Yet beneath that surface of activity, the truth often reveals itself. Busyness is not the same as effectiveness. Like running in circles, motion without direction drains energy, but does not move anyone closer to the finish line. If you are listening right now, perhaps you recognize yourself in that picture. Perhaps you too have felt the frustration of working from dawn until late night, only to look back and realize the most important tasks, the ones that would truly move your team forward, remain untouched. This is not because you lack discipline or intelligence or even drive. It is because the very structure of leadership often tempts us into believing that doing more means achieving more. In reality, leadership impact is not measured by how many tasks you check off a list, but by whether those tasks were the right ones to begin with. Pause for a moment and think about your own days. How many times have you started the morning with a vision of focusing on one or two key priorities, only to find yourself pulled into endless threads of emails, emergency requests that could have waited, or meetings where your presence made little difference? Leaders everywhere know this feeling. The day slips away, and though you were busy, you were not effective. And effectiveness, not busyness, is the true currency of leadership. A useful metaphor comes from history. Imagine Alexander the Great, one of the most successful military leaders of all time, marching with his armies across vast territories. He was not remembered because he personally handled every supply detail, wrote every order, or oversaw every campfire being lit. He was remembered because he focused on the battles that mattered most, the strategies that shaped empires, and he trusted his commanders to handle the rest. If Alexander had insisted on doing everything himself, history would not have known him as the Great. Instead, he would have been lost in the minutiae of endless details. Modern leadership faces the same challenge. Without clarity, without the discipline to separate what is urgent from what is truly important, leaders risk being swallowed whole by the noise of daily demands. The digital age has magnified this struggle. A phone in your pocket means you carry the world's requests with you every moment. Notifications tug at your attention, and each one screams with the same intensity, "Answer me now." But answering does not equal leading. Leadership requires discernment, choosing what deserves your attention and what can wait. As you listen to this audiobook, I invite you to reflect personally. Where do you fall on the spectrum of busy versus effective? Do you often equate a full calendar with productivity? Do you feel the silent weight of guilt when you decline a meeting, even if that time could be better spent crafting a vision for your team? Recognizing this distinction is the first step toward mastering time as a leader. Because once you see the trap clearly, you gain the power to step out of it. Here, let me pause to gently ask you, Where are you listening to this right now? Maybe in your office before the day begins. Maybe in your car as you move between meetings. Or perhaps late at night, when the noise of the world finally quiets. Wherever you are, take a moment to comment. Let us know and share your time zone. It reminds us that no leader struggles alone in this journey. And if you find this voice a companion worth keeping, subscribe to AudioBook Sanctuary and turn on notifications so you never miss the strategies that could reshape not just your day, but your leadership life. Now, let us step back into the flow. The truth is, the most successful leaders in history have always understood that time is not something you manage like coins in a pocket. Time is an investment. Every hour you spend is a seed planted somewhere. Plant it in fertile soil, and you reap progress, innovation, and growth. Scatter it carelessly, and no matter how much effort you pour in, the harvest will be poor. The danger lies in the illusion that all tasks are equal. They are not. Some tasks, though small in appearance, carry immense weight. Others, no matter how urgent they appear, matter little in the long run. This brings us to a powerful realization. Leadership is about leverage. A lever does not change the strength of your arm, but it multiplies what that strength can do. Time management for leaders works in the same way. You cannot create more hours, but you can multiply the impact of the hours you have. If you learn to identify which tasks are levers and which are distractions. Consider the life of Steve Jobs. When he returned to Apple in 1997, the company was drowning in dozens of product lines. It was busy, but ineffective. Jobs slashed the chaos, cutting product lines down to 4. By focusing on a handful of the most important projects, he turned Apple from the brink of bankruptcy into one of the world's most valuable companies. His genius was not in doing everything, but in choosing the few things worth doing. That is the difference between a busy leader and an effective one. As we close this first section, let us anchor the key truth. Busyness is not leadership, and leadership is not busyness. Being everywhere, doing everything, answering every call is not the mark of greatness. Effectiveness is. A great leader is measured not by the speed of their responses, but by the weight of their results. The goal of this journey is to shift your mindset from the endless cycle of doing more to the powerful discipline of doing what truly matters. And now, with that foundation set, let us turn to the first great principle that will help us separate the essential from the trivial. The rule that shows why most of our energy goes wasted and how to reclaim it. This is where we step into the wisdom of the 80-20 principle, a law of nature and business that will forever change how you see time. The 80-20 principle, also known as the Pareto principle, is one of those timeless truths that once seen can never be unseen. It tells us that in almost every area of life, a small portion of causes produces the majority of results. In business, 20% of clients often bring in 80% of revenue. In sales, 20% of products drive 80% of profits. In leadership, 20% of tasks create 80% of the true impact. Yet most leaders spend their days drowning in the 80% that yields little return, while the critical 20% waits neglected in the background. Imagine for a moment that your day is like a table scattered with stones. Some are large, heavy, and valuable. Others are small pebbles that make noise but carry little weight. If you spend your energy endlessly moving the pebbles, you will collapse from exhaustion long before you move the stones. But if you dedicate your energy to lifting just a few of those heavy stones, your progress will be visible, meaningful, undeniable. This is the essence of the 80-20 mindset. History gives us striking examples of leaders who embodied this principle. Take Winston Churchill during World War II. Each day, Countless reports, memos, and requests landed on his desk. If Churchill had given equal attention to every single matter, he would have been paralyzed by detail. Instead, he applied an instinctive 80-20 approach, focusing on the pivotal strategies that would determine Britain's survival. Alliances with the United States, the defense of the skies during the Battle of Britain, and maintaining the morale of his people. Thousands of smaller issues swirled around, but Churchill's greatness lay in identifying and acting on the few critical levers that would decide the fate of nations. Now, let us bring this closer to your world. Look at your weekly schedule. Out of every 10 meetings, how many truly move your mission forward? Out of every 10 emails you respond to, how many actually shift outcomes in a significant way? If you are honest, you will see that the majority of your energy is consumed by the 80%, tasks that feel urgent but deliver little. The 80-20 principle whispers a challenge. Dare to focus on the few that matter most. But here's the challenge. Our minds are wired for activity, not necessarily for effectiveness. There is a psychological comfort in checking off small tasks. Each tick of a box gives us a rush of satisfaction, even if the task itself had little strategic value. Leaders often fall prey to this trap, mistaking the dopamine hit of busyness for the deep fulfillment of true accomplishment. The 80-20 principle invites us to trade that shallow comfort for the profound results of focused action. Take Bill Gates, for example. In the early days of Microsoft, he was notorious for locking himself away in think weeks, times when he cut out the noise of daily management to focus solely on big ideas, new technologies, and future directions. While thousands of operational details swirled in the company, Gates understood that his unique contribution as a leader came not from answering every message, but from identifying and investing in the few ideas that would shape the company's destiny. Those weeks produced insights that propelled Microsoft into becoming a tech giant. Gates was living the 80-20 principle, dedicating his best energy to the 20% of decisions that would drive 80% of the company's future. Now, the obvious question arises: how do you identify your 20%? How do you, as a leader, discern which tasks are the levers and which are the pebbles? The answer begins with ruthless reflection. Look at your goals. What outcomes truly matter in the next month, the next quarter, the next year? Then trace backwards. Which tasks directly move you closer to those outcomes? Those are your 20%. Everything else may still need to be done, but not by you, not with the same urgency, and not at the cost of neglecting the essential. One practical method is to keep a simple daily log for a week. At the end of each day, review your activities and ask, which 3 things I did today will still matter 3 months from now? More often than not, you will find only a handful. Those are the seeds of your 20%. The rest, though busy, will fade quickly from memory and from impact. There is also a deeper courage required here. The courage to say no. Leaders often fear that by declining tasks, by stepping out of certain meetings, they will appear disengaged or less committed. In truth, the opposite is valid. By choosing carefully where to invest your energy, you signal clarity, discipline, and true leadership. Think of a surgeon. She does not perform every test, prepare every instrument, or write every chart. She focuses on the operation itself, the one act that truly requires her skill. That is 80-20 thinking in its purest form. It is worth noting that the 80-20 rule is not just about tasks. It also applies to people. Within your team, 20% of individuals often generate 80% of the innovation, initiative, and results. Wise leaders know how to identify, nurture, and empower this group, not by ignoring the others, but by recognizing that disproportionate impact deserves disproportionate investment. The same is true of clients, partnerships, and even habits. 20% of your routines shape 80% of your effectiveness as a leader. But beware of misunderstanding this principle. It does not mean that the other 80% is useless. It simply means that not all tasks or people deserve equal amounts of your time and energy. Leaders who fail to grasp this spend their lives in frantic motion, while leaders who embrace it step into leverage, multiplying their influence. The 80-20 principle, however, is only the beginning. Once you accept that not everything is equally important, you are faced with a new challenge: how to systematically sort your tasks so you know which require immediate attention, which can wait, and which can be delegated or even eliminated. This is where we turn to a tool as practical as it is profound, a framework developed by a man who led a nation through some of the greatest crises of the modern world. That tool is the Eisenhower Matrix, and it will forever change the way you look at urgency and importance. Dwight D. Eisenhower, the 34th President of the United States and a 5-star general in World War II, once said, "What is important is seldom urgent, and what is urgent is seldom important." These words capture a paradox every leader faces. The urgent is loud, pressing, impossible to ignore. It rings your phone, it fills your inbox, it interrupts your train of thought. The important, on the other hand, is often quiet, subtle, easily postponed. Strategic planning, relationship building, deep thinking. Yet it is the important work that determines whether a leader creates lasting impact or simply spins in the cycle of short-term busyness. To navigate this paradox, Eisenhower developed a simple but powerful framework, the Eisenhower Matrix. Imagine a square divided into 4 quadrants. On one axis is urgency, on the other is importance. The first quadrant, urgent and important, is where true crises live. These are the matters that demand immediate attention. A key client about to walk away, a major system failure, a health emergency. The second quadrant, important but not urgent, is where the magic of leadership happens. This is where strategic planning, training, vision setting, and relationship cultivation belong. The third quadrant, urgent but not important, is the danger zone of distractions, interruptions, meetings without purpose, minor requests that feel pressing but add little value. Finally, the fourth quadrant, not urgent and not important, is where time simply slips away. Scrolling endlessly, idle chatter, the countless activities that add nothing to the mission. The genius of this matrix is that it makes visible what most leaders overlook. Many spend their lives trapped in quadrant 3, firefighting urgent requests that carry little importance. Others waste time in quadrant 4, mistaking relaxation for aimless drift. Great leaders discipline themselves to minimize time in quadrants 3 and 4, handle quadrant 1 with efficiency, but above all, invest deeply in quadrant 2, the important but not urgent. That is where transformation begins. Consider Abraham Lincoln in the midst of the Civil War. He faced urgent crises daily, battles lost, political opposition, supply shortages. Yet Lincoln carved out precious time to draft the Emancipation Proclamation. At that moment, freeing enslaved people was not an urgent battlefield necessity. Yet it was of immense importance, shaping the moral vision of the war and altering the nation's destiny. Lincoln's decision to act from quadrant 2 rather than be consumed by quadrant 1 is what lifted his leadership from reactive to historic. Now picture your own day. How often do you find yourself hijacked by quadrant 3? Emails marked urgent that in truth could have waited, meetings called at the last minute that drain hours without outcome, phone calls demanding your presence for issues far below your level of responsibility. These tasks feel urgent because someone else has stamped them with urgency, but they are not important to your highest goals. The Eisenhower Matrix invites you to pause and ask, does this task belong to me, or is it simply noise? One modern example comes from Jeff Bezos, founder of Amazon. He famously divided decisions into two types. Type 1, irreversible and highly important, and Type 2, reversible and less important. Type 1 decisions required his personal involvement, deep thought, and careful timing. Type 2 decisions could be made quickly, delegated, or even reversed later without much consequence. This distinction mirrors the Eisenhower Matrix. Bezos reserved his attention for what was important, Quadrant 2 and select Quadrant 1, while refusing to be dragged into the sea of urgency created by others. Using the Matrix in daily practice begins with discipline. At the start of each day, or better yet, at the end of the previous day, lay out your tasks in the 4 quadrants. Force yourself to ask, which of these will truly matter 3 months from now? Which will matter a year from now? That exercise alone often reveals that the majority of today's noise belongs in Quadrant 3 or 4. And once you see it, you gain the courage to say no, to delegate, or to simply let go. There is also an emotional shift that takes place. Leaders often feel guilty when they step away from urgent requests, fearing they will disappoint others. Yet real leadership requires disappointing people at times, disappointing them in the short term, so you can serve them better in the long term. A leader trapped in constant urgency is like a doctor who spends all day putting on bandages, never addressing the underlying disease. Patients may leave with quick relief, but the illness festers. The doctor who carves out time for diagnosis and prevention is the one who truly heals. Think also about the energy cost. Urgent but unimportant tasks burn mental fuel at the same rate as important ones, sometimes even more because of the stress they carry. Leaders who fail to protect Quadrant 2 find themselves exhausted, drained, and ironically less available when real crises strike. In contrast, those who prioritize Quadrant 2, deep work, strategic planning, meaningful relationships, build resilience. They become less reactive, more proactive, and able to withstand storms without losing focus. Let us bring this down to a simple, practical act. Imagine you receive 10 emails in the next hour. Using the Matrix, you ask, which are urgent and important? Perhaps 1, your company's main server just went down. Which are important but not urgent? Maybe 2, an upcoming quarterly review with your board and the draft of a long-term strategy document. Which are urgent but not important? Likely 5, requests for your approval on small matters, reminders, scheduling questions, and which are neither urgent nor important. The last 2, newsletters you never subscribe to, offers you do not need. Now, if you spend your hour answering all 10, you feel busy. But if you spend that same hour addressing the one crisis quickly, then dedicating time to your strategy document, you feel effective. That is the Matrix at work. Eisenhower himself embodied this principle during his presidency. He was known for his calm demeanor, even during Cold War crises. While urgency pressed in from every side, Eisenhower consistently made time for Quadrant 2 activities, cultivating NATO, building long-term infrastructure through the interstate highway system, and focusing on education and research. He understood that the future of a nation could not be built on constant reaction. It required the steady investment of time into what was important, long before it became urgent. And so the invitation for you, as a leader, is clear. Redraw your days using this simple square. See where your energy is truly going. Recognize how much of your life is pulled into quadrant 3 by the urgency of others. Then shift deliberately and courageously into quadrant 2. Protect it like a treasure, for it is there that your leadership legacy is forged. As we prepare to move forward, let us remember, identifying what is important is only half the battle. Even if you know your 20%, even if you use the Eisenhower Matrix to categorize your tasks, one truth remains: you cannot do it all yourself. At some point, you must multiply your time through others. And that is where the art and discipline of delegation come in. Delegation is not simply giving away tasks. It is one of the most strategic skills of leadership. It is the bridge between knowing what matters and ensuring it gets done. And it is to this bridge that we now turn. Delegation. For some leaders, this word stirs discomfort. It feels like surrender, as though handing off a task means losing control. For others, it stirs impatience. They think delegation is too time-consuming, that it's quicker to do the work themselves. Yet the truth is both simple and unshakable. No leader can achieve greatness without mastering delegation. Delegation is not weakness. It is not laziness. It is the very mechanism by which a leader multiplies their time, empowers their team, and focuses their energy on the few things only they can do. Think of Thomas Edison, the prolific inventor credited with the light bulb, the phonograph, and motion pictures. History often paints him as a lone genius. The truth is more nuanced. Edison ran laboratories filled with dozens of skilled assistants. He delegated research, experimentation, and documentation, guiding direction and vision while others executed the details. Without this army of collaborators, Edison could not possibly have filed over 1,000 patents. His brilliance was magnified because he mastered the art of multiplying himself through others. Now, contrast this with the leader who insists on clutching every task close. They approve every document, attend every meeting, oversee every detail. They may feel indispensable, but in reality, they are imprisoned. Their teams remain underdeveloped, their organizations stagnant, because the leader never learned to trust and release. Delegation, when done wisely, is not the abandonment of responsibility. It is the refinement of responsibility. It is the decision to focus on the vital few tasks that only you can do, while empowering others to shine in the areas they can master. But let us be clear, delegation is an art, not a blind handoff. Many leaders fail because they misunderstand it. True delegation follows 3 golden steps. Choose the right person, give clear instructions, and trust while verifying. First, choosing the right person. Delegation is not a game of passing random burdens. It is the strategic alignment of task with talent. Imagine a symphony conductor. She does not hand the violin part to the percussionist, nor the timpani to the flute. She studies her orchestra, understands the strengths of each musician, and assigns accordingly. Leaders must do the same. To delegate effectively, you must know your people, their abilities, their potential, their growth edges. Delegation that ignores alignment only creates frustration for both leader and team. Second, giving clear instructions. Too many leaders fall into the trap of vague delegation. They say, "Handle this project," without articulating the expected outcome, the standards of quality, or the deadlines. The result is disappointment. True delegation is specific. It paints the target clearly. By Friday, I need a 2-page report summarizing the key risks in this proposal, written in plain language, ready for presentation. Clarity protects both the leader and the team member. Third, Trust while verifying. Micromanagement is not delegation. Hovering over every detail suffocates initiative and signals distrust. Yet blind trust without oversight invites disaster. The middle path is to trust the person's ability while setting milestones for feedback. Think of it as guiding a ship by lighthouses. You do not sail for them, but you ensure the vessel passes checkpoints safely. A powerful historical example is Queen Elizabeth II. Her reign is remembered as a golden age for England, marked by exploration, cultural flourishing, and the defeat of the Spanish Armada. Elizabeth delegated extensively to trusted advisors like William Cecil and Francis Walsingham. She did not attempt to handle every diplomatic letter or every military strategy herself. She empowered brilliant minds around her while keeping the final authority to steer the kingdom. Her delegation was not abdication, it was orchestration. In today's corporate world, look at Howard Schultz of Starbucks. Schultz envisioned Starbucks not just as a coffee company, but as a third place between home and work. He delegated the operational details of global expansion to teams while he focused on culture, vision, and brand identity. Had Schultz tried to personally oversee every store opening, Starbucks would never have become the worldwide presence it is today. Delegation allowed him to keep his hands on the wheel of vision, while others managed the gears of execution. Delegation also transforms relationships. When you entrust someone with meaningful responsibility, you communicate faith in their potential. That trust breeds loyalty, motivation, and growth. A leader who hoards tasks communicates the opposite, that the team cannot be trusted. Over time, this breeds disengagement. But the leader who delegates wisely sends a powerful message. I believe in you. I see your strength. I trust you to carry this. Such trust often draws out hidden capacity even the individual did not know they possessed. Of course, delegation requires courage. There will be mistakes. Tasks may not be completed exactly as you would have done them. But remember this. If a team member can do a task 70% as well as you today, with trust and coaching, they will soon reach 90%, even 100%. And when that happens, you are freed to pursue higher-level leadership work that no one else can touch. Here is a practical challenge. Take your current task list and mark every item with one of 3 letters. O for only I can do this, D for delegate, and E for eliminate. You may be shocked to discover that many tasks you cling to belong in the D column. Delegating them may take time at first, but the long-term dividends are immense. Each successful handoff is a seed of multiplied impact. Delegation is not just about tasks, it is about legacy. Leaders who fail to delegate build organizations that collapse when they step away. Leaders who master delegation build teams that thrive long after they are gone. They understand that their greatest impact is not in the tasks they personally complete, but in the people they raise to carry the mission forward. As we bring this section to a close, let us remember, leadership without delegation is not leadership. It is glorified overwork. Delegation is the hinge on which leadership effectiveness swings. It allows you to honor the 80-20 principle, to live by the Eisenhower Matrix, and to build a culture of empowerment rather than dependency. And yet, even with delegation, one challenge remains. The modern world is relentless in its assault on attention. Notifications, calls, meetings, endless noise. These are the enemies of deep focus. To truly master time, leaders must go beyond prioritization and delegation. They must protect sacred space for their highest work. In the next section, we will uncover the art of establishing golden hours and the discipline of shielding yourself from distraction. Because in the end, time management is not just about structure, it is about focus. There is a truth every seasoned leader eventually discovers. The most valuable hours of the day are not the longest ones, nor the busiest. They are the golden hours, the stretches of time when your energy is sharp, your focus is deep, and your creativity is alive. Protecting these hours is not a luxury, it is a necessity. In those sacred windows, a leader can accomplish work of such magnitude that it outweighs entire days of scattered busyness. Think of Ernest Hemingway, who wrote his masterpieces not in marathon sessions, but in disciplined early morning hours when his mind was clearest. "There is no one to disturb you," he once said. "It is cool or cold, and you come to your work and warm as you write." Hemingway's golden hours produced literature that still echoes decades later. The same principle applies to leadership. Your most strategic insights, your most decisive choices, your most visionary plans are born not in chaos, but in concentrated focus. Yet here lies the danger. Modern life wages war on golden hours. Emails arrive without pause. Phones buzz with notifications. Meetings expand like gas, filling every available slot. Before you know it, the very hours when your mind could soar are devoured by low-level tasks that could have waited. To master time as a leader, you must not only recognize your golden hours, you must defend them with vigilance. How do you do this? Begin by discovering your natural rhythm. Some leaders are sharpest at dawn, when the world is still quiet. Others find their peak energy mid-morning, or even late at night when distractions fade. Pay attention to when your thoughts flow most easily, when decisions feel clear, when you sense momentum. That is your golden hour. Once you identify it, schedule your most important work there. The strategic planning, the vision crafting, the high-level problem-solving. Protect it like a fortress. Warren Buffett provides a modern example. Known for his extraordinary focus, Buffett has often said that his success comes not from busyness, but from long stretches of uninterrupted time for thinking and reading. He guards his calendar so fiercely that entire days may contain only a handful of appointments. By doing so, he ensures that his golden hours are invested in the decisions that truly shape Berkshire Hathaway, not squandered on distractions. But defending golden hours requires more than blocking your calendar. It requires building shields against the constant pull of distraction. Emails are among the greatest culprits. The average professional checks email dozens of times a day, each glance breaking focus and stealing minutes. For leaders, this cost multiplies. Every time you interrupt your thinking to answer a minor message, you sacrifice the deep flow needed for weighty leadership work. The solution? Schedule email time like any other task, perhaps twice daily, and keep your inbox closed outside those windows. Phone calls and instant messages carry the same risk. They demand instant responses, creating a culture of constant availability. But true leadership is not measured by how quickly you answer. It is measured by the wisdom of your decisions. Set boundaries. Let your team know when you are available for rapid responses and when you are in deep work mode. Protecting this rhythm will not weaken trust. It will increase respect, for you model what focus looks like. Meetings, too, are notorious thieves of time. Many leaders spend the majority of their day in conference rooms or on video calls, leaving little energy for their true priorities. The Eisenhower Matrix reminds us, many of these meetings are urgent but not important. The cure is twofold. Decline unnecessary meetings with grace, and design the ones you attend with clarity. Set agendas, keep them brief, and always ask, does my presence here create enough value to justify this hour? If not, step out and reclaim your golden hours. Consider the example of Bill Gates and Paul Allen in Microsoft's early days. They often pulled themselves away from endless operations to lock in focused sessions of coding, problem-solving, and brainstorming. Those golden hours, fiercely defended, birthed the innovations that would change the world. Their discipline in protecting focus was as important as their brilliance in writing code. Of course, protecting golden hours requires internal discipline as well. Distractions are not only external, they live within us. The temptation to scroll, to wander, to procrastinate can erode even the best protected time. Here, rituals can help. Begin your golden hours with a short routine: a cup of tea, a walk, a moment of silence. Signal to your mind that you are entering sacred space. Remove visual clutter, silence notifications, close unused tabs. Create an environment that whispers, "Focus now, the world can wait." Leaders who practice this discipline often find a surprising result: less stress, not more. At first, the act of shutting off the world feels uncomfortable, even irresponsible. But over time, the results speak for themselves. More gets accomplished in 2 hours of focused work than in 8 hours of scattered busyness. This clarity spills into the rest of the day, reducing the sense of being constantly behind. Another shield against distraction is what I call the buffer zone. After your golden hours, schedule a block of lighter work: emails, administrative tasks, quick check-ins. This creates a cushion, ensuring that once your focus time ends, the inevitable noise has a place to land. Without buffer zones, distractions creep into your golden hours. With them, you gain control of the flow. And let us not forget the cultural ripple effect. When leaders protect their golden hours, they give permission for their teams to do the same. They model that busyness is not the badge of honor, that true value lies in results, not frantic activity. Over time, this reshapes the culture of an organization, shifting it from reactive chaos to intentional productivity. As we draw this section to a close, the threads of our journey weave together. We began with the difference between busyness and effectiveness. We learned to focus on the vital few through the 80-20 principle. We gained clarity through the Eisenhower Matrix. We multiplied our impact through delegation. And now, we have seen how golden hours and distraction shields transform theory into daily practice. So let us end where leadership always begins, with choice. You cannot control the length of your days, but you can control the shape of them. You cannot silence every distraction, but you can silence enough to let your best work emerge. And you cannot create more time, but you can choose to live as if every hour is an investment, not an accident. Great leaders are not remembered for how busy they were, but for the change they created. They are not honored for how many tasks they completed, but for how wisely they chose the few that mattered most. And you, listening here, perhaps weary of the endless treadmill of busyness, are invited into that same legacy. The heartbeat of this entire audiobook can be distilled into one truth. Leadership is not about doing more. It is about doing what matters most. In a world that idolizes busyness, the courage to step back, to prioritize, and to focus is itself a radical act. It is also the mark of true leaders. Think again of Eisenhower's wisdom. What is important is seldom urgent, and what is urgent is seldom important. Those words could serve as the compass for every decision you make. They remind you that the noisy demands of today are rarely the things your legacy will be built on. Your legacy will be built on the choices you make in Quadrant 2, the important, the not yet urgent, the work that shapes the future. And yet, you cannot walk this path without discipline. The 80-20 principle challenges you to continually ask, What are the vital few that deserve my best energy? Delegation demands the humility to trust others, to release control so that you may lead where only you can. Golden hours call for courage to protect time fiercely, to stand against the current of endless notifications. And distraction shields require vigilance, for the world will not hand you focus. You must claim it. But if you do, the rewards are profound. Stress diminishes, clarity emerges. Your days begin to feel intentional rather than reactive. And most importantly, the people you lead feel the difference. They no longer see a frantic leader buried in endless tasks. They see a clear, steady guide who knows where to steer the ship. So here's the invitation. Tomorrow, when the flood of demands begins again, pause. Do not rush to answer every call. Instead, choose. Choose the 20% that truly matters. Place it in your golden hours. Protect it. Delegate what you can. Eliminate what you must. And then step into the day. Not as a victim of time, but as its master. Time will never slow for you. The emails will not stop. The meetings will not shrink. But you can change how you move through them. You can choose to lead not by busyness, but by effectiveness. And when you do, you will discover that leadership is not about having more hours. It is about having more impact. May you step forward from here with new eyes for your time, new courage to protect it, and new wisdom to lead with clarity. Because in the end, the greatest leaders are not the busiest. They are the ones who dare to do the right things at the right time.